I'm on Lake Cochituate. Actually, there's three ponds of Lake Cochituate. South Pond, where I'm on right now. There's also Middle Pond, which is former Lake Cochituate, and North Pond. So I'll start just about here. It's a mile up to there. All the way around to here, touch that bank. Come all the way back and go down and do this lake. And then do Long Pond. I think it's going to be about a 15-mile journey. We'll see. The watershed itself, which is part of the Sudbury River watershed, is about 17 square miles. Now the longest length here in Lake Cochituate is about 3.76 miles in 625 acres. And the former mills and industries that existed along these ponds would in turn dump their chemicals into these lakes. And they were polluted quite severely in the late 1950s and throughout the 1960s before some environmental groups and conservation groups decided to clean it up and stop it. In terms of the wildlife here in Lake Cochituate, a lot of birds. I've seen a bunch of egrets, blue herons. There's an eagle in this area. Plenty of Canadian geese, which I refer to as chicken of the end times, and ducks and cormorants as well, diving down, plucking things off the bottom of the lakes. I've decided today to travel across all three ponds to touch the farthest shore of each pond and to see what I clock out at. I'm estimating maybe 15 miles today. But this was formerly a reservoir. I'm sure that Lake Cochituate, this is South Pond, I'm sure all three ponds that comprise Lake Cochituate were used as ice farms in the winter. They probably built ice houses, and of course there are ice fishermen as well. That building is the U.S. Army Soldiers Systems Center. Shh, I don't know what they do there. Okay, I'm about to enter my second channel for time trials here. Whenever I come out to South Pond, I like to do these and time myself. We'll run this, and then I'll do one more long sprint with both channels. Getting a little cloudy. All right, getting ready to sprint now. So I just did some sprints here, some time trials, and I'm slower than I was in July. Oh well, either way, good exercise. But it's a beautiful day here on the South Pond of Lake Cochituate. I'm on Middle Lake, or Middle Pond of Lake Cochituate. Again, the towns of Framingham, Natick, and Wayland all lay claims to its shoreline. But the Saxonville Industrial Railroad track used to run alongside here, but they would bring in supplies and ingredients to the Carling Brewery Company, which used to exist on the shorelines here of Middle Lake. Also ITT Continental Bakery and a Green Stamps warehouse. I don't know if your parents or grandparents can tell you about Green Stamps. They used to collect them and you can get coupons and discounts. It's got a lot of history here, a lot of fishing, and again, this was a former reservoir, but today it is no longer used for drinking water. Now, the Cochituate Dam was built 1848 is when construction began. And what they did is they built a 14-mile Cochituate aqueduct, which took fresh water into Boston. And they used this for fresh water up until the year 1951. Prior to that, Bostonians were getting their water from Jamaica Pond. Ugh. Today, these communities get their water from the Wachusett Reservoir and the Quabbin Reservoir. There was a microburst that took place here in 2005. Winds and lightning damage. A tree fell on two young girls. And the weather can change very easily and quickly here on Lake Cochituate. Now, the term Cochituate in Algonquin language means swift river. And the only river is Cochituate Brook, which is a wimpy little trickle that flows into the Sudbury River, so it's a misnomer of sorts. Some think that the term means the torrent or the place of rushing water. And again, there's no rushing water except when high-speed motorboats pass by. Now, during King Philip's War, which is the most fatal war in American history, which went from 1675 through 1676, but arguably it started a few years earlier, that was a war between the colonists who had allied themselves with the Pequot and the Mohegans against the Algonquians. And the reason why the Pequots aligned themselves with the colonists is because they almost were obliterated by the colonists in the Pequot War of 1637. It was a horrendous war. These Algonquian villages were decimated. They suffered starvation, disease. Both sides inflicted horrendous casualties on the other. The Native Americans didn't have muskets as the English colonists did, and they would take it out on men, women, and children just because they were Native Americans and considered savages. Indians were converted to Christianity. They were called praying Indians. In other words, if you didn't convert to Christianity, you were a savage and they'd have to kill you. But Natick was a praying Indian town. And during King Philip's War, they moved some of these praying Indians to, it was supposed to be a colony, but it turned into a concentration camp on Deer Island. And a guy by the name of Abram got some of his buddies to row in the moonlight to massacre the Indians on Deer Island. Hooray, Whitey! For no reason. In fact, they were not even fighting against King Philip. They were allied with the colonists. So another atrocity committed by colonial expansionism. Now, those praying Indians that survived their internment on Deer Island came to Natick, forming a praying town. In 1677, a marauding band of Mohegans attacked them and marched off 16 young men. Later, the chief of the Mohegans apologized, saying that these were just young braves who had nothing better to do, and they attacked on their own, and he offered up wampum belts. But after that attack on the praying Indians in 1677, for all intent and purpose, they were never heard from again. So after that attack by the Mohegans, the fortress at Cochituate was no more. And there's been some speculation that Native Americans inhabited the shores of this area before they were connected ponds for thousands of years. In fact, Lake Cochituate, this is a kettle pond, which allegedly was formed by receding glaciers. Like most lakes and rivers in eastern Massachusetts, they suffer due to pollution in the industrial era of the 19th century, early 20th century. People would just throw things into the water. In fact, there were pesticides found here that was affecting the wildlife. It's now just being cleaned up, as after it was forsaken as a water source, people began to pollute it, and the industries that surround the lakes began to pour their chemicals into the lake. And now I'm on the North Pond, almost as large as the South Pond, very expansive. You have to come in underneath Route 30 and the Turnpike. The third of 3 lakes at Lake Cochituate, trying to get 15 miles. At the farthest tip now of North Pond. Still going. All right, just hit 15 on the dot. Longest I've ever been in a kayak, straight away, straight shot boating. So if you look at my map, as I try to eke out 15 miles on the 3 lakes of Lake Cochituate, you'll see that I tried to strafe every single shoreline. Thank you so much for joining me on my talk about Lake Cochituate and the 3 ponds, the 3 lakes. Hope you have a nice day.